Failing at something sucks, especially something you care about, that you put a lot of energy and effort into. But it doesn't have to be all bad. How can you learn from your failures, even the most epic? Well, I've got some tips for you. Let's get it. In this video, you're going to first be invited into a paradigm shift regarding failure. Then, I'm going to share 3 tips to help you learn from every failure or setback: acceptance, curiosity, and lastly, vulnerability. First, the paradigm shift. Learning from failure is actually a skill. I think I've always considered that learning from when I fall or when I have failure to be a skill, but I never really put it in that discrete context until I heard Seth Godin talk about it. He was on Simon Sinek's podcast recently saying that 2 of his very best skills are knowing how to say no and learning from failure. Our ability to learn and grow and adapt from failure or setback is truly a skill. And that's great news because it means that it can be honed, it can be built up, it can be fine-tuned. We can actually train ourselves to be better and better at failing or learning from failing, such that it creates bigger and more frequent success. But how? Let's dive into 3 development tips to help you learn from even your most devastating failures. But before we do, if you're getting value from this, make sure you subscribe. Even click the notification bell. I do videos like this all the time to give you value each and every day. So make sure you click subscribe so you'll get notified when the video comes through. Okay, let's dive into them. Tip number 1. Accept failure as a natural part of the journey. Failure, mistakes, or setbacks is a natural part of our evolution, of your life's journey. And the more that you can accept that as a fact, as just a natural occurrence, then it's going to minimize the number of times that you feel paralyzed, that you feel motionless, unable to respond when failure hits, even the really devastating ones. Seth Godin actually practices this by repeating a mantra in his mind over and over again, something he's become really familiar with. And that is, this might not work out. He actually at one point had t-shirts made for himself and his colleagues with this slogan and then a picture of Humpty Dumpty. By embracing this concept and allowing his colleagues to embrace it as well, it can transform this really big, scary, frightening thing of failure to become just a natural part of the journey of pursuing a really big, bold endeavor. With the possibility of failure introduced as just a natural part of the journey, it's like it reduces the pressure. It enables you and those around you to transform any fear of failing into anticipation and excitement of actually diving headfirst into this endeavor and the hope of actually being successful. Development tip number 2, get curious and ask questions. Get curious about why the failure occurred. What assumptions were made that were wrong or misplaced? What could you might have done differently to avoid that failure? You know, anytime I talk about failure, anytime I talk about setbacks, I always can remember the very early stages of my speaking career, when of course I was making bids and hoping to land client engagements all over the world, oftentimes being in the top runnings of speakers that they were going to bring into their conference, but not landing the engagements. It was when I got curious about why I wasn't landing those engagements, who they selected instead of me, such that I could fine-tune my pitch, such that I could work to really elevate the uniqueness, the differentiation that I was bringing to the platform as opposed to other speakers. And it really helped me clarify the language used to market myself and my message. There is so much that you can learn just getting curious and asking those questions. What could I be doing differently? What went wrong? What assumptions am I making that are a little bit misplaced that I need to change or tweak? And it becomes like this iterative iterative process. And for me, as I continued to learn, I started landing more and more engagements. And so it got me even more curious for the ones that I didn't land to then say, oh, there's something else that I can learn here in order to increase that hit rate. The third and final tip to developing this skill of learning from failure is to step into vulnerability by documenting and sharing your journey. One of the most powerful ways to make the learning opportunity meaningful and really sticky is to document the journey and then share it with another. Whether that be to your management, your team, your entire organization, or even throughout your network, your mistake, your failure, and what you learn from it could not only serve you in moving forward, but also help those around you to sidestep those same mistakes or same failure. You know, when I was working in corporate and more traditional roles, anytime there was an initiative, anytime there was a project that experienced setback where we had some level of failure, I would always document what happened in the journey, what went wrong, and what I think needed to happen in order to sidestep that. And I had recommendations that I would send out to the entire organization to help them avoid those failures. And I create articles and reports and share that out to the entire organization, not being shamed or ashamed of the failure that we experienced, but rather wanting to celebrate the learning that was afforded because of that failure being made. And there were so many times I would get people stopping me in the hallway or people sending me an email or making a phone call saying, Cassandra, thank you so much for sharing that information because we're about to embark upon kind of a similar project and now we know what not to do. So it can be a huge help in sharing that journey. And by you having to document the journey, really thinking through what went wrong and making those recommendations, it's going to help you really crystallize the learning and the knowledge for yourself moving forward. So this actually reminds me of a client that we're working with in the automotive industry. And one of the leaders, as a part of his weekly regular drum beats with his team, he has this portion of the standing agenda that it's called I effed up sessions, where essentially he's inviting the people on the team to talk about a failure or something recently that happened where they effed up something really badly. And he wants to know, what did you learn from that? Or what do you intend to learn from that? And by doing that, he invites that level of vulnerability. He invites the share out of not only the failure, but what you gained from that. And that is celebrated. So speaking of learning from effing up, I got something else for you and it's totally for free. I actually want to offer you a free chapter of my best-selling book, Change Enthusiasm: How to Harness the Power of Emotion for Leadership and Success. And it's the introductory chapter to this growth mindset, enabling you to harness the power of the emotion that we so often feel when we've had failure, like that frustration, like that anger, how to harness the power of that emotion to fuel your growth, your learning when you're going through that tremendous change or that really devastating failure. And it's yours today for free. All you got to do is click on the link below in the show notes. I want to make sure you have the data, the insights, the research to accelerate your growth through even your greatest change challenges and most devastating failures. I'm Cassandra Worthy, and until we meet again, keep growing and keep rocking.